The first session of the symposium, Data Rights are Women Rights, Understanding the Links Between Data and TFGBV. This session will be led by two experts, Rebecca and Szu-Hui. Rebecca is a feminist technology and researcher working at the intersection of AI, language data, gender justice, and digital equity. She has held fellowships with Google, Mozilla, and the Internet Society, and supports feminist tech spaces, including the African Women School of AI. Szu-Hui, Emma Huang, serves as a movement-building coordinator at Amnesty International Taiwan and works as an independent consultant specializing in digital rights and feminist movements. With over a decade of experience, she empowers nonprofit organizations to foster interdisciplinary and cross-border collaboration. Rebecca and Szu-Hui, the floor is all yours.
Hi. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. Yep. So just wait me a second for the... Yep. Rebecca, I think, would you mind also introduce yourself a little bit first? Because I was working on for the slide presentation part. Yeah.
Hello. Hi, everyone. That was very interesting flow, especially moving from the presentation just preceded this conversation on just the linkages between the emerging technologies, including AI, to TFGBV. And that is a good opening to the discussion that we're having around, data rights, women's rights, very much drawing a kind of an idea of how the two relate and interlink together, given the examples that Laura Bates already shared. So we're going to take you through a journey on this session. And the journey that we're going to do is we're going to explore data points, and then we're going to kind of look at what data triangulation looks like. And that will allow us to kind of have a broad discussion on how all of this tie together to aspect facilitating gender-based violence. So we invite you to join us through this journey. Szu-Hui is going to share an image, and then we're going to kickstart that process to kind of help each other kind of figure out how do we look at these things more holistic, how do we look at how data points relate to facilitating gender-based violence. Back to you, Szu-Hui.
Yes. So unfortunately, since we are talking about digital-based violence, and we actually am having a tech issue, so I'm wondering, is possible that Rebecca, may I just pass the so it's already here?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sharing my screen, Szu-Hui.
Yeah, thank you very much. So shall we move to the next page? Thank you. Yeah. Amazing. So yeah, Rebecca, I'm just also wondering, so we are showing this photo, and we also are quite curious what the audio you have seen, since we are talking about digital security and digital violence. What have you seen as a sign that may cause you worry about? So how, maybe you can start from Rebecca. What do you see in this photo?
So the interesting thing for me that comes up first when I see this image is the context, the environment in which it is based. So it's clearly in an outdoor environment. There is a pride flag that I can see. There seems to be some kind of a theme color because of the colors that the woman raising her hand has, also the person who is standing on the other side has. That shows this is something that happened specifically, maybe a demonstration or some kind of an event. And although the images are blurred, there is some kind of an things that can be identified from this image and can kind of link to what we can expect to identify from this image. There's a story that is being told by us, and these are the data points that we mentioned at the beginning. So what do you possibly see when you look at this image?
Yes, so I think when I see this image, I also see something behind this image, which is the metadata in my include behind the image. So the metadata, which means like when you check the photo in your phone, you may see for each photo, it will have some footnote there. So it's such as like which device took this photo, and where you took this photo, the GPS location, also the time you took the photo. So actually, a lot of time when we upload the photo to the digital platform, no matter it's a Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. So somehow it's also explore where I took the photo and where I am. So that's something I see behind this photo. And also another thing is like which I worry when I see the photo, I will be worried about is that there are a lot of faces like directly see to the camera, which means like if I have a very good AI technology and the facial recognition, it could be available for the government or for the people who want to manipulate those faces. So that's the other part I see. So I think that we also, I think Rebecca, both we kind of talking about the data. So in such a picture, so what we are facing about that, anything you would like to explain more, or maybe also we can share more to the audience that how should we see behind this information?
That's right. So based on what we look at in the image, even the metadata that I mentioned, there's likelihood of someone being able to identify the date and time that the photo was taken, because this is metadata that is behind the image. There could also be GPS coordinates that are available along with the image that kind of give you an idea of where this image was taken, the photo. It can even tell you the device make or the model. Was it taken by an iPhone? Was it taken by an Android phone? It gives you all that information. But there's also the contextual clues that we mentioned, including, landmarks that are visible on the image. These all tell you some sort of information. So in this kind of image that is maybe publicly posted in a platform that is available to the public, there's kind of a triangulation of how that data flows and how that image can be used. So in this case, someone could do what I already mentioned, the possibility of checking out the images, using facial recognition, identifying the people who are within that photo. But there's also something that we identify as unique identifiers that are possibly part of the image. There is a picture of a woman that I've seen there whose facial features are vividly visible. That kind of can already be used to link that photo to either social media, scrap the data from different platforms online and be able to identify and link it to maybe a specific social media account. And not only will this allow them to have access to information, because within the social media account, there's possibility of getting access to information like the phone number that was used to register that specific account, address, maybe whatever personal information that they've also shared within the account. And these links will already provide you with enough information, maybe, for example, if you're in Kenya, to link that to a mobile banking system. So if this person's phone number is visible, you can link this to a mobile banking account, check it across M-Pesa and realize that this is the phone number of so-and-so. And then now you have a name as well. You can be able to trace it across creditors' accounts, be able to identify from banking systems and other solutions if this person has any kind of debt that is in the public domain. So there's a lot of triangulation that happens and overlaps. This can be name and the phone numbers, the phone and the device and the location, or the location and even the property of the owner. So there is real people behind the images that we found, and there's a correlation between them. And this kind of links to tech-based gender-based violence, because when you have access to this kind of personal identifier information, the possibility of doxing is high, because you're able to kind of identify where they're located and you can share this information. You can harass these people because they participated in a particular event. You can stalk them once you know their account profiles and where they're based. You can also identify who their relatives are based on their platforms and maybe do some sort of financial stalking and request for compensation for something. You can impersonate them, take pictures that they have online and create fake profile accounts. You can use tools such as Grok and others, which have been used to undress and create nude images of people. You can also do sextortion. If you have information about them that is not known, you can coerce them. You can monitor how they move. So an image can become a very powerful tool in third-party gender-based violence, especially once you identify what are the data points and how data can be triangulated about them. So back to Szu-Hui to tell us more about the data broker and the state actors.
Oh, sweet. So I think, thank you, Rebecca, that you really cover quite a large, the whole picture about it all. I think that there's something, since here we put the 3 buzzwords, I think I also can share part of my perspective. And of course, I also want to hear about the Rebecca's one. I think something I found very interesting about things that I located in Taiwan in East Asia. And a lot of time a lot of our government always check about what the EU's law talking about and what's the United States law talking about. And that's something I found, but somehow that's also something I found out that the law actually does matter, because how the country decide to protect each citizen's digital privacy is actually also would decide how much the legal framework that really can protect each individual. And then when we're talking about each individual, we are not only talking about the activists ourselves, but also about the people we want to protect for. So that's quite a critical thing. Like if we never doing the advocacy, we never keep talking with the government. And actually nowadays the legal framework is the weapon that will kill us. So but also, especially during the time, like us, we are now not using the open source tool. We are using Zoom as our platform. We are using the Instagram or Facebook to share our voice. So that's how we can keep doing the digital campaign. And even though for the AI tool, it will be held by the Google. So actually, it's also why it's really important. Like we're talking about who gonna handle our data and how we can monitor, how we can demand and monitor the data. Because when we're talking about data, it's exactly what's the example that Rebecca just shared. It's about all the metadata behind just one image about your face, where you locate, what you are doing, what kind of device you are holding, and who you are talking about. And by digital tagging, by digital tracking, they even can see who are your family member, and then they can do in the practical actions. So that's a particular action. If for the intimacy relationship, it may be the digital gender-based violence. But if between the activists and the government, that would be the repressions to the democracy or even to the individual. So I think that's also, we don't have a lot of time, but somehow that's something I would like to emphasize about, because a lot of the time when people are talking about the digital right, digital privacy, it sounds more only for the digital right workers. But in my experience, is also highly crossover with the feminism movement at the moment as well, especially a lot of the activists and also the politicians when they are female. As the opening just talking about, 99% of the victims actually are women. Those women's image actually highly be used as a weapon to attack the activists. So I think that's also quite a high linkage. So I would like to back to the Rebecca. Anything you would like to add on?
I think that brings us to the discussion about the intimate partner as well, because you've spoken about how we move from the data broker to the state actor to now how tech facilitators by this TFGBV can be manifested from the intimate partner who has access to maybe your images, who access to information about you, and can possibly use that to extort as well. So that kind of gives us a kind of structure of how now to look at intervention points where harm could possibly be stopped. In this case, we have an interesting zone poll that Szu-Hui will take us through.
Okay, sweet. Would you mind move to the next page? Thank you. So I think here we also, I think that's something, I think before the pool, we also can kind of wrap up a little bit of what we're just talking about. It's also about the, I think what we are talking about is also about how we should do we're also talking about how we should defend our data and how we can work together. So I think that's also another thing is how we can start to do the self-awareness, not only the physical one, but also the digital one. How we self-awareness, where is when we're talking in feminist, I think in feminist movement, we always talking about the autonomy of our body. But the body actually is not only the physical one. Since we also spend 7 to 8 hours online, our digital autonomy, how we can control it by our own self, and also decide how we should use, how we should express our own physical and also the digital body. That's also quite important. That's also why we are talking about the data nowadays. So now we're gonna move to the next part, please, next page. And yes, so now the floor is also open to all the participants. We see almost 200 participants with us. So now it's the question to you, which intervention is most critical at this juncture? Please choose one, and we would like to hear more from you. Yeah, I think for this part, we have 10 seconds. If you cannot type, if you have another thought of the intervention in your mind actually is not be included in these 3 options, please also type it in the chat box. Don't worry, we both Rebecca and I, we can see everything in the chat box. Yeah, and also if you cannot find what the pool, and please move to the next page. We also can show the 3 options on the screen. Next page, if you can. Thank you. Yeah. So yes. So I just repeated the pool, right? Now we are in the 10 seconds for the pool. That is a question: which intervention is most critical at the least juncture? So if you cannot see the Zoom pool, you can see the option on the screen, and they also vote by typing. Okay. I believe everyone is ready. Also let me say hi to Anna from Brazil. Yeah. So Anna, don't forget to vote the Zoom pool.
Yeah, and feel free to typing in the chat as well any other intervention that is not mentioned within the poll that you think would be a solution to some of the challenges that we just raised, including, how data can be used for different forms of tech-based gender-based violence. If you think there's other interventions that we should consider beyond the 3 that were mentioned, that would be useful for us to kind of have an understanding of what could be possibly done at this point as action points.
Okay, sweet.
I think while
I think now everyone already voted. Shall we just see the result?
Yep.
Ooh,
awesome!
Wow, awesome. Yeah, I think I think everyone very equally voting is quite a co-creating moment. Yeah. So yeah, I also believe like everyone say, I think these 3 all are quite equally important, but I think from my experience, also also what I have been working on, because for my personal role, I'm more working with the community directly, and also that so-called safety by design. So I think the two more things I would like to share more about. One is about the safety by design, because since we're talking about the autonomy and the digital self-awareness, so I have to say it's like when we're talking about the risk assessment, it always sounds very heavy for all the activists or community worker. They always tell me like, that's too much. So, but there's something where we're thinking about the risk assessment or how we can take care of our own self. Actually, it's really simple as it can be, because it's really about how can we think about the possible condition, and then we spend like 30 minutes or 15 minutes before to protect ourselves, to eliminate the potential risk. So for example, since we're talking about how horrible share the photo, but somehow as a campaigner, it's impossible to not share a photo on your social media, because that's also how we speak on our voice. So it's more matter that we are aware there is a risk behind, and we found a way to eliminate the metadata, so our GPS location, everything, and also we may post the posting time may difference from the current moment. Then that can already provide a certain coverage of the safety for your own self. So I think that's why we're trying to say the safety by design. And another thing about the community I would like to address about is about the autonomy. I think really, really like what all the speakers have just shared. It's always bad idea to say, no, you cannot do that. You should not do that. It's impossible to do that. It's really bad strategy when the teacher or parents tell the children not to use the TikTok because they cannot find a certain way to use the TikTok. So it's more or even create the parents' account. But somehow what's more powerful in the practical way is like the parents or the teacher talking with the children, what they happen when they are using the TikTok or when they are using the platform, and what's the strategy when they can also protect themselves, and they should do design, because that's how we call the autonomy. That's also the same thing. It's like when we want to explore ourselves online or in the in the real world, how we know we can safely to explore ourselves. I think that's also, it requires a community to do it with you, because a lot of time we don't know how to do. But the digital security specialists, they know. The lawyer, they may know. Also, maybe your mother or even though your community friends come together to come up with the co-creating strategy. That also can bring them more help. Yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking, and also something more I would like to share. So I also bound to back to the Rebecca. Any more thing you would like to share to the audience?
Yeah, thank you, Szu-Hui. Just to add on the legislative piece on feminist data legal frameworks, I think most often laws are kind of gender blind. They do not look at these things holistically, especially from a gendered lens. Often on paper, they're neutral and that looks universal and just okay. But structurally, it's missing the key point, because often neutrality does not equal equality. So in this point, a lot of times the legislation is not looking at what are the gender-specific needs within the frameworks that they need to look at. They treat harm as individual. They do not treat it as structural. And most of the time, the laws as well, they focus more on the process of the data lifecycle, like the data collection aspect, who has the data power, and then not much on how that translates into actuality on the ground. There's also the issue of consent and how that is rationed. So that kind of brings a bigger picture around how we look and think about legislature. We need to stop looking at it from the perspective of just holistically and how it affects each individual, but more start thinking about, what are the gendered impacts when we legislate the data protection law? How do we look at the different ways in which different genders are harmed when their data is put out in the public, and how can we be able to address this? There was actually an interesting comment that came up on the chat, I think from Alia, who says that I noticed that from the poll results, the community literacy, legal reforms, and safety by design are almost equally important. In your experience, how can governments and tech companies realistically coordinate these three layers to better prevent digital gender-based violence? I think that was very, very an important question, because these layers are kind of important to be addressed in that manner. And from my own experience, I kind of think that governments and tech companies have a role to play. So the law kind of sets that ground for how these conversations will flow. But I think the tech companies have a responsibility that they bear in terms of, liability towards the harms that their platforms perpetuate and how they can enforce protection. So one thing is they can ensure that they have those safety by design features embedded into their systems. They should not look at it as a default, but more as something that should be by design. And they should also take it upon themselves to foster community literacy and also adhere to the legal reforms that are present. And then the government also has the role to enforce how this happens. They also have a role to push for community literacy, whether it's by formation of laws that foster for digital literacy or requiring tech providers to actually consider making sure that they provide literacy on how their tools can be used, how they can be reporting towards TFGBV, and also very much make it possible for them to know the tools that are available for them. In case of a case, how do you report? How do you regress from an issue of that nature? So I'll hand it over back to you, Szu-Hui, if you have other response to that.
So I think maybe, shall we move to the next page since we are almost the time up? Yeah. Yes. So I think in the next page, please. Well, thank you. Yeah. So I think since it's already end of our session, I think there is something we would like to share more. It's about the tool, and because as Rebecca and I, we have shared quite a kind of generally cover everything. So I think that the tool I share actually are three. One is about how we prepare our mental health, because I think it's also quite important, especially for the feminist activists nowadays, because that's also how we can become down and also face all the gender-based violence in the digital, especially when the AI actually highly used more. And we're talking about AI and also another tool, another resource in the previous page, actually more interested about if I wanna start to have the training, or if I face some situation I don't know how to do, that's the place you really can see how you can find the solution. And then also that's the place you can find the people to call for help in the previous page. And this page is about, I think in the opening talk, also talking about our research. Why research is important is like a lot of the time, activists, especially for activists or the victim themselves, they don't know they actually are under the violence. So especially the digital violence is quite invisible and unspeakable. So the research by especially in the field, by the practical experience shared by the activists actually really can help us to see and also share their strategy. So this is the two resources I highly recommend. Yeah. So sorry, Rebecca, do you have any last sentence?
Yeah. So I think the participants have requested that the resources be shared on the chat. I think that will also be shared. Just to also point out, you can also look at the Feminist Research Network. There's a lot of beautiful research coming out of there with interventions and what others are doing across the globe. So possible areas to explore and see what are the avenues that you can be able to participate in this conversation or address the capacity gender-based violence.
Yes, thank you, everyone. That's that's the end of our session. And there, I see the next speaker already. I see the Cecilia already coming up. So thank you for everyone.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Szu-Hui. What a creative and powerful segment that was.